Welcome in, Hokie Nation, to this edition of TSL Today. We record on Friday, February 24th, 2023, from the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center in Blacksburg, Virginia. We got a great show planned for you today. Kyle Marshak is on set. Chris Coleman joins us as well. Abby Nielsen behind the scenes. We're going to talk AJ Swinton, his recent commitment to Virginia Tech, the 4-star recruit out of Sierra Canyon, all that and much more coming up on this edition of TSL Today, and it starts right now. Welcome back to this edition of TSL Today. Again, we were recording on Friday, February 24th, 2023. Again, let's introduce the crew on set today. Let's double down. Kyle Marshak across the way. To my right, lead analyst and columnist Chris Coleman. Thanks for hopping on to talk AJ Swinton, and Abby Nielsen behind the scenes. So Chris, again, thank you so much for taking some time on your Friday afternoon. Some big news out of Virginia Tech basketball in terms of their recruitment today with the recent commitment of AJ Swinton.
Yeah, he visited Tech twice. He visited back in December for the UNC game, and then he visited last week for the Pitt game. And I think he knew where he was going to go when he visited. I think the visit last week was all about making his commitment video in Blacksburg, to be honest with you. I think that's what it was all about. When the student section starts a chant for you at the game, saying, we want you to come here, then you kind of have to go there, don't you?
That's pretty good.
Was that the Carolina game or the Pitt game?
I don't remember, but I think it was actually originally at the Carolina game.
Yeah, Kyle and I were not there at that one, so we can't speak to that. But.
You said before, though, he filmed his commitment video at Fox Ridge.
Yeah, you can recognize it. I used to play on the court that he's shooting at in his video.
That is a hop, skip, and a step away from Carter and I's current residence right now.
We live right by that.
Please don't hunt us down, guys.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't. Please don't. So he picked Tech over Ohio State, Maryland, Xavier, and Georgetown, among others. Previously played at DeMatha and Oak Hill. So I assume that Mike Jones, the associate head coach at Virginia Tech, was heavily involved in his recruitment.
Yeah, he would have played for Mike Jones at DeMatha, and I think that definitely played a big factor there. I think it's an excellent get for Tech, especially since I think their primary competition was Maryland, since he's from that area, from that neck of the woods. So to be able to beat out a school that is basically in his backyard from where he grew up, I think says a lot. And that's one of the reasons Virginia Tech hired Mike Jones as well, is to help their recruiting up in that area. And we've seen it last year with Buchanan and Rice, and now you go into this class as well. Obviously, he's not signed yet, but that will come in November. But you could see the connections on the staff. And now that Virginia Tech has a couple of players on their team that he would already be familiar with from playing in that area, that I just think that made the fit all the more natural.
You mentioned off air that Justin Mutz is a fair player composition to AJ Swinton. What are the comparisons there, and how do you see him fitting into Mike Young's system?
He's a guy who is going to be probably an undersized 4, like Mutz. I know the recruiting services list him at 6'5", 180, and a small forward. He's more like 6'6", 210 right now, and he's still in high school, so he's still got some growth potential. He could maybe top out at 6'7" and 225, 230 pounds, which is basically just like Mutz. And I wouldn't suggest that he would be as great a passer as Mutz. I think Mutz is really unique in his terms of his ability to pass the ball out of that power forward position, but I think he's got really long arms, so he's going to play taller than he is. I believe he's got a 7'2" wingspan. So they're different. Like their skill set is probably a little bit different but from a size standpoint, yes, it's that undersized 4. But playing someone undersized to that position can create mismatches on the offensive end. And I think generally the best Tech teams of the past have always had an undersized 4.
It's Tech's first commit in the class of 2024. How do you think this can affect the rest of the class when you add a prize recruit like this early on in the process?
Yeah, I think you'll probably shut it down as far as your power forward recruits, and maybe even your versatile swing guys between the 3 and the 4. So much of it, though, like with the transfer portal these days, it's hard to project out a year and say, this is what we're going to need in this recruiting class. These are the holes we're going to be looking to fill. We don't know that. Like Tech will lose at least one player to the transfer portal at the end of this year. I mean, and I don't know who that's going to be, but it's going to happen because that's just what happens these days in college football. And then that will change your plans for the next recruiting class. So I would think Tech will probably go out and try to get someone like a true post player in that class as well, someone who can play the center position. And obviously, Mike Young's always going to be recruiting guards. But right now, we don't know exactly how many spots are going to be open for that class yet. So recruiting's still going to be a little fluid.
So that's interesting. You said 7'2" wingspan.
Yeah.
That is preposterous for someone who's 6'6".
Right. So he's going to play like he's 6'8" or 6'9", I think.
Yeah, that is
and
nuts.
You can get away with it.
So that's a fair point. He can play like a 4, maybe even up to a 5. I mean, the Hokies have gotten used to having, undersized 5s, you could say, with Grant Basile. And he's been an athletic scorer. My question to you, and this is totally a stretch, but just completely hypothetical. He can end up, depending on how he grows the next couple of years, anywhere from playing a 3 to a 5. What about defensively? Where does he end up? Do you think with his athleticism and his reach, that's someone that they might even put towards the backcourt defending? Or
Mike Young has always said the position you play, you are what you can guard, right?
Okay.
So I think it's it kind of depends on matchups. Maybe he's going to be able to probably guard some small forwards. Maybe if they're playing a team with a more traditional lineup that has a 6'6" or 6'7", 210-pound small forward, something like that, that's a good matchup for him. But if they play like one of those 3-guard teams, where like Miami, and it's like your third guard isn't really a small forward, it's legit another shooting guard on the court, it's going to be more difficult for him. So it's going to come down to matchups. Basketball these days, I think, is so matchup dependent, and it's kind of like you see some teams with 3 guards, one smaller power forward, I would say, and then a traditional big man. But you'll see some other teams with your traditional lineups. So it's going to vary to a certain extent.
Miami is the first team I thought of.
Yeah. But like for Virginia Tech, for how I think Mike Young would play it, I think he's probably would say he spends more time at the 4, but that depends on how he develops. If he develops really good lateral quickness, he could guard smaller guys and develops a 3-point shot and a good handle, then he could maybe spend most of his time at the 3.
That is crazy with Miami. We were talking about that the other day. Norchad Amir is kind of their biggest guy down low. He's 6'7".
6'7",
They don't have a guy above 6'7" that plays consistent minutes.
You would not really guess he's 6'7", though, just because he's so strong and how he plays.
He is a big body guy.
He really is.
Yeah, no, that was the weird thing is I don't want to say Virginia Tech's undersized because, they still have strong players. Basile's a big body guy. So is Mutz. And, they play their positions just fine, but you don't see a lot of lineups where everyone's shorter than your tallest guy against the Hokies. Because at the end of the day, 6'9" is like the new 6'7".
The year Virginia Tech made the Sweet 16, so Buzz Williams last season, Virginia Tech's power forward was Ty Outlaw, who was 6'6". Yeah. And they're back, and they only had one guy over 6'6" on the whole roster. That was Blackshear. Their backup center was, I think, he was listed. PJ Horn was probably listed at 6'7", but if you ever stand next to him, he's 6'5". So there was like
at one point he was 6'8" on the roster.
Right, and he was not. Trust me. So Tech went to the Sweet 16 with one guy who I would say was taller than 6'6". So it just comes down to the strengths and weaknesses of your team. I would rather have an undersized, skilled player than just to recruit some big guy just to say I had a little bit more height, but the guy wasn't any good.
Yeah.
I think that's perfect. I think that should just wrap it up. Chris, thank you so much as always. We appreciate you giving, 10 minutes of your time on a Friday afternoon?
Yeah, you bet.
Chris Coleman's hopping off now. Kyle Marshak and I will be right back. Again, Abby Nielsen, thanks for producing behind the scenes. When we come back, Virginia Tech women's basketball talk, the Hokies winners in Chapel Hill, and then we'll preview the Hokies going down to Tobacco Road to take on the Duke Blue Devils on the men's side. All that and much more coming up on TSL today. Come right back.